Tej, let's move on here to the Packers against the Eagles, where, I mean, this game obviously very, very excited for. We had it as our game preview for a reason. Do you regret that? Like, were you unsatisfied with the overall movement of this game?
I was. This is the only game I found a little bit boring, and I very rarely find games boring. But I mean, it was just like each drive kind of felt like the same thing over and over, where like the Eagles defense was just like smothering everything that the Packers offense was doing. Packers would lose a player to injury per drive. And then on the next drive, it would be like Jalen Hurts rolling out, not being able to find anyone downfield and throwing it away. And then it was just rinse and repeat.
I mean, this is coming from Mr. Galaxy Brain picking Bo Nix in the first round. So, I mean, how much do we take there? Obviously, you'll be able to hear me do the full breakdown with our buddy Shilkapati on the Ringers Philly special. I think there was so much to take away from this game, a little bit positive, a little bit negative. I think that I'll start with our guy, stats and scheme defensive coordinator of the year, Vic Fangio. Just like, I try not to say, oh, like masterclass, just a really, really strong game plan where coming into this game, there was a question of, do you play them in man coverage because they're struggling against man coverage? Do you blitz them a little bit because Jordan Love they've offense as a whole has struggled a little bit against the blitz? Fangio says, no, sir. Like, we are confident and comfortable in our zone coverage. We do not have to send more than 4. We'll be able to cause issues when we need to create issues. And I mean, Zach Bond, like literally from the first snap, where he bumps down to the edge, and I'm pretty sure they still call it the Buffalo front, where it's like you have guys head up on the guards. It looks like a 5 down, but it's not a 5 down, like a kind of a 3-4 look. And to see him just like, okay, he has to fit the run, but that he can confident and comfortable just, you're playing the flat to the opposite side. You're turning, you're feeling that crosser coming across you. I was like, all right, like this isn't something that they've done a lot this year in pass coverage. And to see them just pull that out was really, really fun. You saw Bond's interception where he was kind of the quarters hook player. So instead of a player that's playing out to the flat, you're kind of in that low middle of the field area. And he is not like taking the cheese. He's not taking the underneath route. He is going off of Jordan Love's eyes, has an awesome interception on on a dig where that's just like not really something that I think that you see from a person who is really expected to be a special teams contributor. If he wasn't on the Eagles, I'm not sure if he would have ended up on a roster at the end of the season. Like, that's how fantastic that first team all pro, like potentially defensive player of the year type movement for Bond. But this really, really broke my heart. Like watching Nakobe Dean get hurt, and it sounds, I think it was his patella, that he's going to miss the rest of the season, certainly through the playoffs, and then maybe even into next year. Just not, I don't know what the recovery things are for that. I mean, and it was on a play that he actually made a similar play in week 1 against the Packers where it's a screen. He feels it. He gets downhill really fast. He blows it up. He's able to close and finish. And I mean, you see him like get up and kind of shake his head. No, I think it was to Nolan Smith. I was like, oh man, like Dina's had such a good year where last year he was hurt. His first year, he had issues with that as well. He got on the field. He was for me, like a second team all pro type linebacker where he's playing physical. He's getting fast downhill. He is a plus aspect in the blitz game, and he can cover too. So for them to lose that, now you move on to Oren Brooks, who had that awesome forced fumble on that opening kickoff. Now, who recovered that? Tej, that's not for me or you to say. That's for the refs. That is not for me or you to say. But like, so much positive here. We talk about the Darius Slay interception, Isaiah Rodgers coming in and having a really nice play. It's such a bummer because that Dean injury, like, I do think it means a lot because now Fangio has to decide, how much of Zach Bond do we want in that kind of more like the role of Dean. Obviously, those linebackers are flipping around kind of often for them overall. That's a bummer, but you see Nolan Smith emerge overall. So to me, what is the best defense in the league? You unfortunately take that hit with Dean, but a lot of good overall from that Eagles defense.
Yeah, I mean, loved everything that you said there about the Eagles defense. I'm excited to listen to the extended version of it with you and Shield. But yeah, I mean, I thought like starting with the Nakobe Dean injury in particular, like last year, his injury was so big for the Eagles defense because he was kind of their last line of defense at linebacker. And after he got injured, it all really fell apart in terms of just like teams accessing them against them or in the middle of the field in the area that he would usually be able to operate, and obviously in the run game as well. This year, at least they have depth at linebacker. They have other linebackers that can step up, so it won't be as bad as it was last year. But it's still a significant injury for this defense, especially for someone like Dean, who was having such a good year, as you mentioned. But like in this matchup in particular, I was surprised that the Packers were targeting Quinyon Mitchell so much. I think he ended up getting targeted 6 times in this game per next gen stats, and only allowed 2 of those to be caught for 10 yards, and wasn't allowing much separation in general. So that was an interesting game plan from Matt LaFleur, and execution from Jordan Love. But also, you could just tell that this Packers offense was just kind of running out of gas here in this particular matchup, where you lost Christian Watson, who was your go-to target against man coverage. And so had a tougher time finding an answer against that. You lost a couple offensive linemen throughout the game, a couple receivers, where you ended up throwing to Malik Heath on a very crucial down, and he wasn't able to get his feet in bounds because he's a backup receiver. Like, the starters probably would have been able to do that. And so there was just a lot going on in this game for the Packers. But combination of Matt LaFleur having a little bit of an off day as a play caller, as an offensive game planner, coupled with Jordan Love's general streakiness, and him being kind of at the bottom of where his usual play is, and the pass catchers and offensive linemen just not being at the level that they're used to. It was just a tough day for the Packers offense, and everyone but Josh Jacobs, basically.
I would have liked, yeah, to see LaFleur really, unload it. I think a little bit more. It's easy to say before you lose, like, I mean, every single player on your offense. It was so wild to see all the injuries happen in this game. Obviously, you hope they're able to get healthy. You hope the receivers are able to make another step forward, because I don't know. I'm not. Like, it doesn't feel like they're a team that would, try and sign T Higgins, or try and bring in a guy to really be like your 1A in a few different ways in the past game. So I'm interested to see what their offseason looks like. Let's flip it over here to the Eagles offense against the Packers defense, where the passing game, it has struggles. And Tej, I said this to you before the game. I was like, look, if the Eagles go in and just play like a clean game, kind of an all four aspect, run defense, pass defense, run offense, pass offense, I'm going to start to think about, hey, would I take the Eagles over the Lions in a potential NFC Championship game in Detroit? The pass game, unfortunately, I think it wasn't a championship pass game in this game. It's been like that a little bit, really a lot of it throughout the entire season. And it's not in this game particularly, like, it's not just, oh, Jalen Hurts can't do this, Jalen Hurts do that. It is, at least in part, like the plays that are being called in that when you're playing against a zone coverage team like the Packers, and you run some of these plays where it's like, hey, like, my guy's going to kind of run to a spot 5 yards, turn around. When you have like 4 of those routes kind of across the board, it's just a little bit easier for the defense to be able to deal with it in terms of a coverage perspective. You're not, stressing zones. You're not really stretching like, oh, like, I have to have a route underneath me. I have a route kind of going over the top of me. So it's a little bit of the overall design. That's like been the issue kind of all season. So you have play design, you have a little bit, I think, of play calling where, obviously I'm always, I think, gonna like some of the run designs, what they have overall. You get like, a nice example where I think, Hurts turns it down, or I think maybe he wasn't able to see kind of the weak safety, but it becomes Saquon Barkley kind of on essentially a wheel route where, like, you want to set him up as a choice route. You're stuttering and continuing out up the field in the red area, but it's just like you pull like one block out of the Jenga tower and everything is falling out for the pass offense, which is particularly frustrating. This is the best offensive line in the league. I think have issues saying that. You have AJ Brown, who, look, Brown was on the injury report all game this week. I actually haven't looked at Brown's movement metrics, but I wouldn't be surprised if they came just like a touch lower, just seeing kind of how he was moving. And he talked about it a little bit. You obviously have Devontae Smith. You have Dallas Goedert, who can be a real threat. You saw him on that play where, against the blitz, Hurts is the one that's checking that quick throw to Goedert. AJ Brown makes a really nice block. I was a little bit disappointed that, earlier on against some of those blitz looks, they didn't have as good answers. And this could also be that, Hurts is coming off of missing multiple weeks. It could be that they had less practice time with him, just like in terms of overall comfort. I think in terms of what he was able to do this week, maybe that was a little bit of a thing. We got like one under center, just like straight drop back. We're throwing a ball to the outside, which I saw somewhere like on True Media that was Hurts's like first of his career, which, like, all right, I mean, he can do it. He clearly can do it. So I think it's hard to just say, okay, this is the exact issue. Because, like, yeah, like, Hurts could have played better. Yeah, you would have liked the receivers to play a little better. Yeah, you'd like a better just play calling, I think, or play calling that would have sequenced a little bit in a way to stress the defense out a little bit. And then, yeah, you would have liked the design from those specific plays to be better overall. It's just so tough that you're at this point in the season. Like, you are a top 4 team in your conference. To me, like you are really a top 2 team in the conference that should be able to push that 1 seed that I mean, am I rooting for the Eagles to win, Tage? You know, I'm an impartial observer that, as I said, is tied to Eagle specific content. So team content would say, "Hey, go Birds." It's just tough that you're at this point in the season and having that kind of similar issues that you had early in the season. That it's like I don't know, you like you gain some of the signal from the third down calls, whether it's like, hey, they're calling runs, they're calling screens. It's not really kind of like we're just straight drop back passing. And look, you don't have to be an under center 7-step drop back like the olden golden days that some teams do a little bit now. But in the third quarter, it's like, oh, we run one kind of play action. We're booting out to the other side. Devontae Smith, big gain. It's like, all right, well, like let's kind of have that going a little bit earlier where we saw Tanner McKee use it a bunch. I think you can see Hurts use it a bunch as well. So I think a lot of issues there. There are still nuggets of optimism and hope in there where, okay, now you have Hurts for the full week. Now you're hopefully that AJ Brown is able to get a little bit healthier. Though, are you able to get healthier at this point in the season? I'm not sure. But you're also going up against a different defense. Now we're recording this before the Monday night game. We are going to record the Monday night review as well as this. So it'll still be one podcast. Maybe at the end of that, we'll talk about just how the Eagles match up with whichever team. Because, if it's the Rams, I think you can run over them. Against the Vikings, I do think you're going to get some funky zone coverage looks that you're going to have to be able to throw through. Tage, I said a lot there. Do you think anything else needs to be said about the Eagles pass offense?
I mean, that was a great rundown of the Eagles pass offense. I love the Jenga tower analogy. That really helped me visualize
I don't
what
love
you
it,
were
Tage.
talking about there.
I don't want it to be like that. Like, it is such a talented unit. And look, they have high-end capability. They've performed at that level. I think that's what it is. And I think we've done this all season where, like, it's not that I'm less critical or more critical on specific units, but it's like you have the ability to win a Super Bowl this year for the Eagles. You have the best defense in the league. I just want to see it all come together. So I think that's why, you take a little bit of extra look at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. Like so when we think about the teams that usually reach the conference championship game or even the Super Bowl after that, they almost always rank in at least the top 5, but usually the top 10 of EPA per pass in the league. Like the top passing offenses the conference championship participants are usually made up of some of the top passing offenses in the league. And what we often see from these teams when you look at their other 3 factors of rush offense, rush defense, and pass defense is they usually punt on one of those. So like the really famous and recent example is the Chiefs last year with their run defense. They had a bottom 5 run defense unit in the league. They were top everywhere else, and that led them to the Super Bowl. There's been some exceptions to that rule where you have a team like the 2017 Jaguars with Blake Bortles, were they able to reach the conference championship game because they were strong in the 3 other areas, even if their pass offense wasn't that good. And the Eagles are not that bad when it comes to pass offense, but they're kind of in that bucket where you have a really good pass defense, a really good rush defense, and a really good run game, but you can't figure out your drop back game right now. And to me, what that comes down to is there's such a stark split between what this pass offense is when Jalen Hurts is kept clean versus when he's pressured. When he was kept clean in this game, he was fine. I mean, he threw 2 touchdown passes, completed most of his passes, operated within the offense. When he was pressured in this matchup, he just wasn't able to really generate much. It's a lot of just rolling out to the side of the pocket, not being able to find much downfield. He doesn't scramble as much as he used to when pressured, and it just led to a lot of throwaways. And that must have been frustrating if you're the Eagles, because everything else is set up in place for this team to reach the Super Bowl. But it's just like when this pass offense is pressured, they're just not able to generate as much as they are, or as they should be able to, because other pass offenses don't have as much of a drop off when it goes from being kept clean to when pressured. So I think that's really what it boils down to for the Eagles offense.
And it's tough because, like I said, best offensive line in the league. I just think that's like an easy thing to say. The interior offensive line, there were some times that the Packers did a good job creating issues. That obviously all pressures aren't created equally, because you could say, like, okay, the pressure, if we assume it's not fully on the offensive line, then you immediately turn to the quarterback, which, yeah, like there are some times, and Hurts says it straight up, like there are times, yeah, or I mean, maybe he doesn't say it in his press conferences. I'm sure he understands and is comfortable with it because he's like made comments about it that, yeah, like sometimes, you're going to invite a little bit of pressure when you're holding on to the ball. At the same time, like, okay, well, why is the ball being held onto? a lot of times it's like, well, there's no one open. So it's an unfortunate situation that like the pressure is not the offensive line's fault. To me, there are definitely times where it is not the quarterback's fault. Times it is, but times that it's not on Hurts's plate. And then you look to, all right, well, you don't have a reasonable outlet. You don't have receivers kind of on the move in different ways. So just, again, something where I just know they can be great at this aspect of the game, and that would just make them like such an unbelievable team. But unfortunately, still kind of figuring things out. And like I said, right, you get Hurts back for another week. You're hopefully able to get kind of things back in rhythm. Hopefully, you're able to put together a good plan for whatever team you're hosting on next Sunday.